Well, hello everybody. This is John. Welcome to the NCGA Valent Ag Weather Outlook for October 22nd, 2016. I'm going to start off with some opening thoughts, things that have sort of been on my mind recently regarding the weather. And basically, atmosphere should be getting more active. We should be getting some more vigorous cold fronts, ones with colder air, more frequent frost and freeze as we transition from early fall, which can be more like summer, to late fall, which begins to look a little bit more like winter. I'm not seeing that so far. Frost has been late in many areas, especially the eastern corn belt. Central parts of the central and eastern corn belt, there hasn't been a frost yet, and I'm looking very closely as far does that mean that there's an underlying warm trend that's going on. Okay, now let's get to the forecast. Here's the last 7-day precipitation. I mentioned it'd be a quiet week in most areas, and it was. Very little rain in most spots. And you can see the only areas that received significant rain, parts of southern Illinois, a very small part, parts of Indiana, and parts of Ohio. You know, Ohio's sort of interesting in that it's really been very quiet through the summer. That's been the driest area. But as we got into late summer and especially in fall, that's been the wettest area across the Corn Belt. If we look at the precipitation departure for the past 30 days, this gives maybe a little bit of idea on the mid and late season harvest where there could be some problems due to wet weather. And look at this right here. This is that area that's been persistently wet. And then here's Ohio, really coming in sort of late this season, catching up with everybody else for precipitation that received it throughout the growing season. Ohio's really getting that precipitation late in the year. As far as soils go, just to give you some idea, wet soils in blue, dry soils in red. And boy, I tell you, I have some people interested over the southeast U.S. in how dry it's been, including some corn growers. And I'm telling you, it has been dry, and there's really not much end in sight for very, very dry conditions over the southeast U.S. Matter of fact, if you look at where drought is currently occurring, you can see over the southeast U.S., the northeast U.S., and parts of California, those are the real hot spots. But I did want to point out here that I don't want to forget the Midwest as well. And there are a couple spots that are getting abnormally dry, and that's indicated these little pockets of yellow here. And that's not necessarily drought yet. It's called D0, but abnormally dry. So definitely we've sort of changed conditions from summertime as we got into fall, and some parts of the Corn Belt now are going over to very dry conditions. So over the last week, we had mild average temperatures across most areas, especially the eastern Corn Belt was unusually mild. And I think as we get into a discussion of the forecast here, the roller coaster type weather is going to continue. But we're going to have a predominance, I think, of warmer than normal weather than cooler. Now, this first week, we're going to have this amplified jet stream here. This is an average for the first 5 days, bulging north of the jet stream in this region and a dipping in the jet stream in this region. So we're going to have basically associated with this is going to be a pocket of cool air and associated with a pocket of mild air. So the western Corn Belt pushing warmer, eastern Corn Belt pushing cooler, and the first 5 days you can sort of see this here with our departure from normal temperature. But like I said, I think what's typical this time of year is roller coaster type weather. This is towards the middle part of the week on Wednesday, and you can see right now there's an area of low pressure, a frontal passage, and that's going to produce some rainfall. Now, fall weather systems are not necessarily known for excessive rainfall. A lot of times the atmosphere is dry. We don't get a lot of rain, but it does look like there is a pretty decent chance of rain, again, in a spot that has been fairly wet over the recent past. But you can see here it's pretty isolated, centered right over there where Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin meet. But everywhere else, it looks like a fairly quiet week. Over the southeast U.S., really nothing of any significance as far as rainfall that would help conditions over Alabama and Georgia in particular. Maybe some light precipitation, but really nothing of any help. Okay, now let's look out a little bit further as we get into the end of October into early November. We're generally in a jet stream pattern that is pushing up to the north. The axis of this high pressure is right through here, so this is where you'd expect the most significant anomalies of above normal temperatures over the plains from Texas, the south central U.S. into the plains. But even over the eastern part of the Corn Belt, the eastern Midwest, you can see that we have a jet stream position that's above normal, and that's because it's indicated in brown. So what we're looking at into that 6 to 10 day period, for the most part, above normal temperatures. Now, from the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, much above normal. The central Corn Belt, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, modestly above normal. And then as we get into Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, Michigan, near to just a bit above normal. Now we get into the early part of November here, and look at this again. Very similar. The jet stream is still pushed up a bit further north than we've seen. And also, this is a type of pattern here. If you look at this sort of this broad jet stream here, I don't see a whole lot of energy in this right now. This is sort of a quiet type pattern. And look at the temperature anomalies. This is out in the 11 to 15 day range. Mild anomalies, but very similar to the pattern I just mentioned, which the most significant anomalies from Texas up into the plains and just near to just a bit above normal over the eastern Corn Belt. So that's temperature. Roller coaster, we're going to have fronts going through from time to time. That'll be bringing temperatures down to near normal, maybe below normal for a while, but then quickly rebounding back above normal. And I think that's the overall trend, is generally above normal. So I mentioned the precipitation for week 1 here. Look at the southeast U.S., how dry it is over this region. Everywhere else, chance of rain with that frontal passage, but nothing all that significant. And then week 2, again, nothing all that significant. Dry signals over the southeast U.S. Over the Corn Belt, nothing that I see that's anything out of the ordinary. I'm sure there'll be some fronts that pass through, a couple fronts, light precipitation for the most part. That's what it looks like for week 2 at this time. And looking out a little bit further out, weeks 3 and 4, this is out there for a ways out there. And, you know, the further we get out there in time for forecasts, I want to use caution with this, you know, really getting too hung up on this. But temperature probabilities now above normal. So we're going now. If I had to say what's the average for the next 4 weeks, it looks like above normal temperatures. And I still see some signs here. Look at this. This is that same pattern right through the central part of the U.S., the most significant anomalies, but it does look like pretty mild pretty much everywhere, and either equal or below normal precipitation. Now, I sent out a post over the last week on the winter outlook that NOAA issued. Just wanted to show it to you. If you didn't notice my post, here's the winter outlook for precipitation. Generally speaking, for most of the Corn Belt, it's equal chances for either above or below normal precipitation, but it does look like that dry pattern is going to persist over the southern tier of the U.S. Now, it does have some possibility over the Great Lakes of above normal winter precipitation. As far as temperatures go, right now it's looking at milder than normal La Nina type weather over the southern tier of the U.S. and a bit cooler than normal or colder than normal winter over the upper Midwest, equal chances for either above or below normal elsewhere. So overall, the takeaway points are typical fall frontal passages. This week, it looks like towards the middle part of the week through the central Corn Belt. Chance of heavy rain with that frontal passage. But overall, I think I'm going to be talking more about warmer weather averages than colder. But with this front going through, there will be some cooler air behind it, and that will especially affect the eastern part of the Corn Belt. I hope everybody's pretty much ahead of what we would be as far as harvesting. Things are going well with you. If you have any questions at all, and I love hearing from you, I do hear from folks from time to time. That's my email. Send me a question and don't mind at all answering it. And I hope you all have a great week. Take care.